then at some stage, I decided that there was enough of risk taking in my life. I had a son that was born back then, and I decided to move to a new path. But that connection between humans and technology in a very positive way, because the work with Videre was truly impactful to some countries and places that we've been working for. So that connection between humans and technology on a positive level really stayed with me, and I decided to continue focusing on that. So I'll start sharing my screen, because at this stage I'm going to speak a bit about Cyborg Nest and actually why I'm very excited to be here. Just a second, I'll make this thing full screen. Is it now full screen? Can you guys see that?
Yes, it's full screen now.
All righty. So, so at that stage, we decided to start Cyborg Nest, which is a neurotech sensory enhancement company based in London. And the idea behind the company came from a simple fact that everything that we ever thought, created, or felt started from a sensory input. So we smell something, we hear something, we touch something, and this is how any information that we have in our brain came there. If we think about it, our brain is the most sophisticated organ that we have, but without our senses, it will be like the most sophisticated computer put in a box in a corner, not connected to the internet or to electricity. So then we said, okay, so if that's the reality, so then if we have more senses, can we start thinking, creating, and helping people from other communities as well? So we decided to launch the company. Sorry, I'll just move this thing so I can see what I'm doing. All righty. And the idea is, again, that by expanding our sensory reach with new augmented reality senses, we will further unleash our brain's potential to think and experience in novel ways. Now, as I said, we enjoy and depend on our life through our senses. That's how we understand everything. That's how we interact, and that's how we communicate. We invented the perfume because we have a nose. We invented music and language because we have ears, and everything else because we have other senses. But those senses today are so saturated because, as you guys know, most of the technology that we have is either built for our ears or our eyes. But for some people, these senses don't function, or even if they function, they are so oversaturated with a lot of information. So we can start to divert some of the information that was supposed to come through these senses using new senses. So then we started thinking, what is a sense that people need, and we looked in the world around us, and we understood that in the last century, in the 20th century, suddenly orientation, navigation, proximity, movement of us physically or data in the digital life became such an important thing of our existence. If you think about it, if you were born 200 years ago in a village somewhere or in a small town, most of the chances is that you will leave your village or your town once in a lifetime and go to the big city, and that will be the big exploration. But as we were talking now, you know, today we go to this conference, to that conference, we move a lot, we have to commute and to orientate ourselves. But we don't have a sense of orientation. So we decided to create a sense of orientation for humans. And at that stage, in 2017, we came out with our first product to the market, something called the NordSense, which is a very simple device that you were wearing on your chest. And basically, every time you face the magnetic north, you get a notification in your chest saying that you are facing the magnetic north. And then there were obvious questions that came, such as, okay, but I have a compass on my phone, I can use that, or why do I need to know all the time where north is? And the answers to that are very simple, because a compass on our phone is a tool. So in terms of, from a neuroscience point of view, we need to make a deliberate decision. Now I need to use a compass, so I'm taking it out of my pocket, I'm turning it on, and I use it, and then when I'm done, I'm putting it back in my pocket. But the magic of senses is that if they function and if they are with us, they are always on. So for example, our sense of touch, we never remove it after we, I don't know, after we play football. Or our sense of taste, we don't take it out of the mouth after we finish eating. And the fact that we have all these senses, that's what creates our reality. So suddenly having the ability to always sense the way that you are orientated on the planet was such an amazing experience for all of us, because you suddenly start to understand the correlations and maps between the way that I'm facing now. It's exactly opposite of the way that I was facing 2 hours ago in the office, and the table and the chair and that thing. And suddenly you have all these, and you start having memories that are based on orientation as well, because it's part of the ongoing information that your brain gets. And we were very surprised, but a few days after we just launched the company with a very small website that we bought for a few dollars, we were suddenly overflowed by the amount of interest from the world that we had. We didn't expect that. And personally, to be honest, coming from working undercover and being a person that works in human rights, and because of my identity, so I didn't have any Facebook profile or Twitter, or I didn't exist anywhere. And suddenly there is all this media from all over the world flying to London to come and meet us and talk to us. And that was a bit of a surprise. And then we started getting invited to a lot of conferences. And then at that stage, I was sure that in one of the Q&A parts of a talk that I give, there will be this nice gentleman or lady that will say, "Hey, Livio, you are a very nice gentleman, and it's obvious that you are very passionate about what you're doing, but in terms of science, things don't work like that. And basically everything that you are saying is a big pile of bollocks. And people cannot have a new sense." But actually exactly the opposite happened, and suddenly the whole science community started getting in touch with us as well and said, "Listen guys, you are probably into something really big and really significant, so keep on going." So that was the first product that we had. And today, and the reason that I'm here talking to all of you nice people, is because we are coming with a new thing called Centero. And the idea behind Centero is based on the North sense. So having the Centero, which is a wearable device that you wear on your hand, like a watch, let's say, you will still face and understand each time that you are facing the magnetic field of the planet, or north, in other words. But it also has other features, such as sensing location of people and sensing location of places, or communicating with people through touch, and also the ability to allow others to feel you. So to explain that a bit more, if we are speaking about locations, so you can sense where is my next meeting and where do I need to go now. You can sense where events are happening now in the world, where the news are coming from, where the International Space Station is, or whatever you can think about. And when it comes to people, not only that you can sense where the people that you love are, and doesn't matter how far they are, you can also sense their heartbeat live. So you're facing their direction on the planet, and you know that if you start going into that direction, you're going to meet them. And although you might be thousands of miles or kilometers away from these people, you will feel their heartbeat and you will be able digitally to touch them and to connect with them. So when we launched the product, suddenly we knew from when we had the North Sense before, the people from the blind and visually impaired community did get in touch with us even then, but now suddenly there were a lot of people from the community that got in touch with us and said, listen, this is amazing because this is what we need. And I had a lot of conversations with some of them, and actually one of the young ladies that got in touch with us, we even hired her and she's part of our team today. um, and 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 they all told me the same thing. They said, yeah, we are always taught that in our schools that we need to base our orientation on cardinal directions, but then there are a few problems, like such as I have the cane in one hand and the dog in the other hand. So now if I need to use the compass that is in my pocket, I need to stop my activities and I need to do different things. So now I will not have to do that because I can just keep on walking without interference and still knowing exactly in which direction I'm going. Same with navigation. And then the even more interesting thing about it is that this device not only that functions on a functional level, that it helps you to navigate, but it also will have a tremendous impact on our mental well-being, because again, as people from the community told me, and I'm thankful for all the stuff that I've learned in the last few months from people, um, because of the lifestyle and the way that life happens for people in the community. It happens that a lot of them are many times relatively more isolated than people that can see, because it is harder for them to leave home or to go and just meet someone whenever they want. But now suddenly they will be able to be connected to those people and to feel them all the time, and without having to all the time to call or to send a text or to set for a Zoom call, because we are all busy, and we can't call someone every 5 minutes just because we miss them. But now suddenly we can feel them even if they are not here. And it is known in the medical world that connectivity has such a strong connection to our mental well-being. So having the ability to be connected to people is such an important thing. And then I was in these conversations I was having with people. Suddenly we realized that this Sentero will also help a lot in the digital life, because I was having a chat with a nice guy from Slovakia a few weeks ago, and he said, you know what, we are having a Zoom call now, but I'm blind, so I can't see you. So Zoom is meant to stimulate two of my senses, but because I can't see, so basically I can only hear you. But if I could, using the Sentero, feel some stuff about you, such as, are you inside or outside, or in which direction you are compared to me, or to feel your heartbeat, or to know if it's night or day where you are, or basic details, then I could have in my head such a more interesting picture about the conversation that we are having now. And those are just three examples of what Sentero could do for the community. And the magic behind Sentero, additional to all that, is that together with you guys, we will be able to further develop new stuff and new applications for the community based on your experience and based on ideas that you have. Because again, when you suddenly have a sense, you start having ideas about this sense. Because if you think about it, if I take from all of you the nose, let's say you never had a nose and you never smelled something, and suddenly you have the ability to smell. then you start thinking, okay, maybe I can invent the perfume, right? But if you never had a nose, then you don't think about it because you never had that sense before. So yeah, so this is the Sentero. Now, how does it work? Sentero works in on a directional basis. So it is worn on your hand, and every time you face a direction, being it the magnetic north or a person or a place that you decided to sense that in which direction it is, every time you face that direction, you get a haptic notification or a touch or a vibration, depending how you want to call it, on your hand, and you will know that that person, location, or the magnetic north are exactly in that direction. So it's very simple and very intuitive, and it becomes part of your life in a very simple and intuitive way. And a bit about the idea of touch. Our sense of touch is actually our most emotive sense, much more than our eyes or our ears when we are touched by someone. The emotive effect that that has on our brain is exponentially stronger than any other stimulation. So being connected to people through touch and being able to feel them, it is a totally different experience for the brain on an emotional level and understanding. And it releases our other senses to do what they are supposed to do or to help us in life in a way that they are supposed to. And to add to that, one of the other amazing benefits that the Sentero will have for the community is not only for the community itself, but for the family members as well. I was chatting to a mom again a few weeks ago, and she said, yes, my daughter, she's going to university by herself, which is amazing, and we are also proud of her. But every time she leaves home, uh, I I and not only that I miss her, but I have this feeling of, is she okay? Is she managing? Is she where she's supposed to be? Is everything okay? And she said, I don't want to call her every 5 minutes because that will create obviously the exact opposite. It will stress her all the time. So I don't want to be the stressy mom that calls her daughter every 5 minutes, are you okay? But if I have the Sentero and I could sense my daughter and know that she's fine and know in which direction she is, and if she reached the destination that she was supposed to get without having to call her or without having to bother her, and I will feel her heartbeat. And again, going back to the heartbeat, it's a very complex thing, because with time, you will learn to understand the person also by their heartbeat, because you will know that, I don't know, if suddenly their heartbeat is it's much more, it's stronger than it usually is, and they are on their way to somewhere. So that might be a sign that maybe the person is experiencing some stress, for example. So maybe that's a moment to give a call and to ask how things are happening. Um, yeah, so that's about Sentero and what we do. I will share this presentation in the conversation in a second, so everybody has it, and you guys can look at it and yeah, share it with other people. What is really important for me to say at this stage is that this presentation has absolutely no sales intention. I'm not here to sell anything to anybody. It's not for the money. We are a company, and yes, we want to sell products in the future, but the main reason why I'm here talking to all of you is because we want to learn and explore together. So what we are offering, and we have limited capacity, so we won't be able to onboard all the organizations that will be interested. But what we want to do is to offer to some organizations the option to give those devices for free, for a pilot project, to learn, to understand, and to see how we can develop this further. So there is no commitment here. There is no sales speech. There is no any other hidden interest, but a pure passion to help and to try to see how we can create positive impact using our technology and the amazing people that are part of your organizations.
Liviu, I think, again, with a small audience that we have, I think we'll be successful with simply having people unmute to ask questions. We have a larger group. I know that there's a feature for people to raise hands or to use chat, perhaps. If you have a question that you as an audience member are not necessarily wanting to unmute and speak for, you can certainly try to put it in chat as well. I have a few questions, but I want to give the audience an opportunity to ask questions. I do want to say first, though, that when I was first looking at your website and trying to conceptualize this, I was interested in the actual technology, like proximity to other people, and whether people have to, for instance, they're both wearing the device in order for there to be, some degree of connectivity. It was more on the technical end. But what I didn't anticipate really was how well you articulated that one of the benefits, perhaps maybe the main benefit besides orientation, is helping people with their well-being and being more emotionally connected. So that was really interesting to me.
I think this is personally to me is key, because my passion with technology is to make people's lives better. And when I say better, is not only necessarily to create a successful tool for them to use, which is also a very important part, but also to think about the parts that many times are forgotten when technology is invented, which is us as people and how we feel and our life, and how that technology can impact us in a way that we will be more connected, that we'll have a richer and healthier and better life experience. So this is a big part of what we do, and the way that we design the technology, and the way that we think about technology when we think about it. And it's not from a pure engineering point of view. And to add to that, just to say that our team is at the highest level of engineering and neuroscience, and we work. It's really at the highest level possible to make sure that we deliver a proper and amazing experience. I see that there is a question in the chat. I must not be understanding. It does constant north is one feature and allows a person to be connected haptically to one other person. Yeah, so I think that you got it correct. So you have the ability to sense the magnetic north at any time, which again, it sounds like a simple thing, but I'm sure that for the people from the community, it's actually much easier to understand and to grasp than people that are not from the blind community, because suddenly orientation is such an important thing, and you would never have that moment that you are completely lost. I'm a seeing person. And one of the things that happened to me while traveling around the world and speaking about the company, or for Videre, for the previous work, is that moment when you walk out of the hotel and you're like, where am I? What's going on here? Where is home? Where is my family? Where is where I need to go now? And suddenly there is that stress, right? And it creates stress, and it creates anxiety, and it takes it's part of an experience that could be that could be eased and could be much simpler, because suddenly having the ability to sense orientation automatically anchors you to the reality, and you understand, okay, if north is there and I live in the UK, so my home is there. And that's how the idea of suddenly sensing places started, because again, I said, until you have a sense, you don't think about things that you can do with that sense. But suddenly when I was like, but wait, instead of me trying to guess where is London or where exactly my son is now, why won't I feel exactly where he is? And then you say, okay, if I can do that, can I actually feel him, even if I'm 5,000 kilometers away? And then we said, of course, the heartbeat, it's such an amazing thing. And if you think about it, even when you are in the same room with a person, that connection to someone's heartbeat is something that is so emotional, that is not really happening because you have to touch the person's chest, right? But suddenly you are 10,000 miles away from the person, and you can be as close to him or her as feeling them in reality. So to finish answering the question, you can sense at the same time few directions. Now there will be a certain limit, and that's the type of things that we would like to check in the pilot, is like, how many things at the same time? Is it too much? Is it two or three? But you will have the option to change them. So if now I'm going to my, I don't know, the local supermarket, so I can say, tell me where Sainsbury is, and it will take me to there, right? Or 7-Eleven, or I'm thinking of a parallel in the States, and I can't think of a good example for a supermarket. But then the next day I'm going to school or to the office, so I put another address, and it just takes me there, so I can play with that. And because, and one of the things that we are developing with our neuroscientists is also these haptic stimulations, these vibrations, to be easy, understandable, and clear. So first of all, not all the locations will have the same stimulation, because then you will say, okay, am I facing north now, or am I sensing my sun? But because it will be like two different words, let's say, so you'll be able to understand very clearly and very easily what direction exactly you are facing now, and what out of the things that you decided to sense you are sensing.
So, Livio, Ron had a second part to the question, again, about it being paired with the GPS inevitably. And I'm assuming you're familiar with the GPS apps that folks use who are blind, that have, speech output, perhaps?
Yeah, so
Right.
the device itself will connect to our app that sits in the phone that has a GPS. So this is exactly how we can sense everything. The magnetic north is actually very, very, very interesting on a science level, because the Centero, just to sense the magnetic north, does not need any connection, because one of the miracles that are happening in the world is that our senses are very limited. Even if all of them are fully functioning, we are still sensing only a small fraction of what is actually happening out there. So in the room where I am now, there are many more colors, sounds, the magnetic field of the planet, and all that. So the device has the ability to sense the magnetic field of the planet without using the internet or GPS or anything else. But to be able to sense a person, for example, then you do need connectivity such as GPS or the internet. So in the first place, yes, it will use the GPS of the phone through our app, and this is how you will connect to other people. And again, the idea is that Centero comes with the engineers will call an API or an APK, which is basically the ability to further develop the application for certain needs. So again, one of the things that we want to learn from this pilot is what are the things people can think about, and I'm sure that the ideas will be, first of all, practical ones, which would be very exciting and very cool. But I can already hint or give some ideas that maybe you don't even think about now, like social games, like a lot of stuff that suddenly can be based on orientation that we can develop together, brain training, memory training. There is a lot of things that we can at later stages work with. Yeah, so the input is via an app. Yes, and you could do it through a voice, and also the app will be suitable for readers for the community. So so it will be adapted for the people in the blind and visually impaired community to be able to easily use the app with all the things that are necessary.
Michael, go ahead.
Well, thank you. Let me introduce the perception from which I am coming to this workshop, and I'll ask my question then. I think it'll make more sense to you that way.
Of
I
course.
am a certified orientation and mobility specialist. I am also a legally blind guy who has been married for the last 42 years and continuing to a woman who is a totally blind person. She is retired now, but was a professional person for many years as well.
Amazing.
And the word that's going through my head as I listen to all of the capabilities that the device is supposed to have is information overload. You know, when I'm going to a professional conference, or she is, we want to know where the front desk is when we get into the front of the hotel, and then how to find the elevator, and then how to find our meeting room or our room. And it's not a time when we're particularly interested in sensing the heartbeat of our relative in halfway across the country. Now, I understand that you can eliminate some of these extra pieces of input and restrict it to maybe 2 or 3 pieces of input at a time, but it seems like every time you need to do something else, you're going to have to stop and engage in a bunch of setting changes. And I just have to ask about the practicality of that, or whether perhaps you're going for too much information at one time. Thank you.
So it's hi Michael, it's a pleasure meeting, and it's actually a very good question about the senses and actually what our brain does, because we are always overloaded with sensory inputs at any time, regardless to what we do. So what our brain does is that it's filtering most of it out. And the example that I give all the time is that all of you ladies and gentlemen that are listening to me now haven't felt your feet touching the ground until I just said that now, although your feet did touch the ground and you did feel that, but your brain decided that this is not an important information at this stage, so it just filtered it out. So this is exactly what is happening with the Sentero, or happened with the North Sense before. When your brain is interested to, let's say, to listen to that information, so then the information is available. But many times when I walk with, and I used to have the North Sense for 2 years, when I walk with my kid on the street, I don't feel the notifications until the moment that I'm interested in them, because I was maybe focusing on my kid and having a conversation with him. So it's the brain does all that filtering, because if you think about it, there is your body, for example, continuously touches so many things at the same time. There is stuff coming through your ears, through your eyes, through your nose, through your mouth, and all that. It's already an overwhelming thing. So if we had to deal with all that all the time, it would have been too much. So it's a very smart system that we have there, and that filters all of it out. So it will, you can be assured that it will be a very not overwhelming experience. And as I said, that is, by the way, one of the things that we want to test is how many of these, let's say, targets or things that we can sense at the same time make sense, and how much maybe is too much and how much is maybe too little. And the about the settings, it will be a very simple function that once you send someone or you want a target, it's like a slider, like in any other app that you turn on and off. So it's not a complicated thing to set up. It's very intuitive and very simple. We can't hear you, Paul. You're muted, Paul.
Sorry, I apologize. I don't want to jump ahead of everyone or anyone who might have a question now, but I've just got to get this out. Have you had at least a handful of individuals in London or England or elsewhere that have who are visually impaired and who have provided some feedback at this point already?
Yeah, so we had with the NordSense, with our previous device, few people from the community. With the Centero, we will actually, it's in high stages of development. We already have few iterations of prototypes, and the idea and the aim is that at the end of this month, we will have units that are usable for the public. It's still for testing and not yet for sales. Yeah, so very soon we will expand the pool of people that are going to use the device, and we are very happy to have all or some of you to be part of this. Yeah. What is the battery life, reliability, rechargeable, replaceable? Yes, so the so the battery is of course rechargeable. The battery life, it will be for at least like any other device for at least a day. We intend to try to make it as much as possible, and hopefully it will be longer than that. But one of the things that we are used to is charging. Even before we had iPhones or laptops, you know, we eat every day and we drink every day and we sleep every day. So this cycle of daily charging is already part of our life, and it's something that we are used to it. About the GPS, so yes, so the Centero connects to the GPS of the phone using the app. You are correct. Provide haptic info based on which way a person needs to go. Yeah, so it will provide haptic information to help people understand in which direction they want to go. And we intend to have two ways of sensing directions. One, to sense a general direction. So for example, I want to know where home is. I'm far away from home now, or I'm in the office and I miss my family and I want to feel where they are. So you can feel their general direction, but it will also help with proper navigation. So getting from a place to another and how you should get there.
And the reason I was asking on that, most of my students who use an app, they use Blind Square or another app like that.
Yeah.
And when you are walking down a busy street, it can be very difficult to hear Blind Square. And if you're using Google Maps versus Apple Maps, you can't make Blind Square repeat.
Exactly. So it's a very good point. And, you know, first of all, what I'm going to say now is not against any company that does anything, because I truly appreciate anybody who does any technology or anything to help anyone in a positive way. But more than once, I've heard in the last months few things about these apps or about smart canes, for example. So people were speaking about smart canes, and actually a nice girl that I was, a nice young lady that I was talking to, she said, you know, I have a smart cane and it has a speaker. So the problem with the speaker is that it makes me feel uncomfortable because I walk on the street and then it basically shouts blind person, so I feel embarrassed and it's not comfortable. And then my other option is to put headphones, but then if I put headphones, then I can't hear anything that's happening on the street. And for me, my sense of hearing is so important. So actually, the fact that we are using touch or haptic stimulation, it's a much better alternative for the brain, because you don't have to deal with a lot of noises that are coming at the same time and trying to understand what is what. But it's using a sense of touch that is not interfering with anything that is happening in the environment that you go. So in that sense, it's a very good solution. Yeah.
Okay, perhaps you could explain in a little bit more detail just exactly how the haptic stimulation works and how one interprets one haptic cue from another. In terms of the situations that you were describing there, and let me preface the question with this. When you talked about the problems that your friends were having to talk with you, I would immediately say, well, there are some tiny little clip speakers that you can hook to your telephone or your tracker or your Captain, clip them up on your shoulder, and that doesn't affect your hearing, but allows you to experience the information without it shouting blind to everyone around you. I would point out that there are bone conduction earphones that can be hooked up and that absolutely do not impact the input that the ears are receiving. To me, having to learn a whole new set of haptic cues sounds rather daunting and cumbersome by comparison. I'm not trying to be negative. I want you to convince me that there's a way that this really can be a good alternative, because it's very interesting, but it still certainly challenges my suspicion.
Yeah, so again, you're touching a very important point, and actually, we've been working with few points. First of all, our sense of touch has been proved in neuroscience as one of the most efficient ways to transfer information to the brain. So our ability to learn different stimulations, it is very high. It is not something that we are used to do, because in our normal life, let's say, not a lot of things that we have are working with touch. And then at that stage, and I won't be shy to say that, we tried and we bought and we tried every actuator, every vibrator that exists on this planet. I'm speaking to you about hundreds of them that we tested, until we found one that is made in Germany, that is a completely different experience from any type of vibrations that you have experienced now. Mainly because of the fact that it can do what you would call frequency modulation, which on an emotional level and learning level has very high ability to create a very rich and very intuitive for learning stimulation. And more than that, to add, which is the cherry on top of the cake, we have a patent that we have filed for that has to do with personalization of haptics. So when we all hear a sound, let's say we are all in the same room and we are hearing the same sound, it is known that we are not hearing exactly the same thing. We might all agree that that was a car horn, for example, or a horse coming by, or I don't know, or the news starting. but it is clear that we didn't hear the exact same thing. And the same thing is happening with our senses. When we taste a tomato, we will probably, most of us agree that this is a tomato, but we will also know very clearly that we are not experiencing the same thing in our mouth. So the same thing is happening with our sense of touch. Each of us has a unique way of understanding touch. So the system that we have patented and are developing now that will be further down the line available is a system that learns your perception of touch. So you will be stimulated, or you will choose to use different types of stimulations, and the system will understand which type of stimulations are most suitable for you personally. So at that stage, the system will completely adapt itself to you.
Paul, this is Chris. Can I ask a question?
You bet. Jump in.
Thank you. Liviu, thank you very much for being here. I'm hoping you can get specific about the sensation of north. When I think about some other similar sensory substitution devices for determining north, such as the Navi belt, where it goes around the entire circumference of your body, we could feel north on our back, we could feel north on our front, we could feel north. You kind of, when you're rotating, you always know where north is. Could you describe the sensation that with just one place on the arm or the wrist, maybe it's using the frequency modulation, maybe it's using an increasing, I guess that would be the frequency, but increasing rate of vibration as you near north. Could you describe what it would be like for someone, for instance, facing south to know where north is?
Yeah, so again, the simple fact and something that we've tested even before we released the North Sense is that your brain very quickly learns to complete pictures, right? So once you know one direction, you automatically know all the other directions. So speaking of overloading with sensory stimulation, we decided smartly that all we need to know is where the north is, because you are never in a position that you haven't moved for, let's say, days or months, and you are stable in the same direction, so you have no idea what's happening around you. When you got to sense to be facing south, getting there, you faced north and other directions as well. So you will automatically, your brain understands exactly which direction you are facing. With that said, again, you will have the option to customize it and to add directions if you're interested. So to add the south or east or west or whatever directions you are needed. But from our experience, it is not vital for the brain to have a complete picture of your orientation, even with knowing one direction.
So just for your future testing, one of the differences between a non-visual approach to your environment and a visual approach is that as a visual person, I have a reference using building lines so that I could remember that every time I face south, I was facing the market. And when I remembered that the device triggered me that north, I was facing the apartments. And so I would have that visual memory. The auditory landscape is much different and will change. And many of the travelers that we work with will likely not have that level of detail that we might through visual memory, because they're still learning to use their auditory sense for things like echolocation. That isn't something that many people who are non-visual have highly developed yet. We have some that come to it intuitively, others not so much. So if there were a way to have different patterns to indicate those different directions as an option, that would be very helpful. Or if I'm turning my body in let's say a circle, as I near north, that vibration comes to greater intensity so that when I'm facing north, it turns to a steady vibration, or perhaps an intermittent pattern to say that, yes, you've reached your target.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you for the input, Chris, first of all. Absolutely yes, for both of the proposals, and I could even propose you further in the pilot test that we will do with you and people from the community to try to understand actually which one of the two options works better. The one that you face, that you understand all the cardinal directions at all time, at any time, or the second option that you offered, which is a gradual, intensifying sensation while you face a certain direction. So very happy to explore both options, and maybe the conclusion that we will get to together is that we will allow the user at the end of the day to choose between them, and we will leave both of them as an option. And as you say, different people have different ways of understanding orientation and learning orientation. So for some people, this might work better, and for the others, the other one would work better. So um, yeah, but both of the options are completely doable and will be part of the device.
Thank you.
Paul, it's Bernadette. I'm wondering, have you tried this at all with people that are deafblind? There's a lot of work going on with haptics related to people that are deafblind. Say, for example, I'm a deafblind person making a presentation, and right now there are some ways that you would be able to indicate that on someone's body if people are laughing or clapping. Are there ways that it could be set for those kinds of haptic inputs that a person that's deafblind would benefit from? Because as you talked before about the well-being and that social isolation, I think it could be helpful in that way.
Absolutely. So a pleasure meeting, and thank you for the input. And absolutely. First of all, on a mental well-being aspect for the deaf and blind community, this will be an amazing experience, because suddenly people will be connected, and you could be part of what is happening around you at all times. And as I said before, the Centero will have the ability to develop almost any other thing that we can think about together, to develop on top of it as part of the experience. So this is exactly why I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to learn and to listen and to do these pilots and to understand, because every person can come with a very smart idea and say, hey, as one day we walked in the woods few thousand years ago, and we heard a bird singing, and we said, "Ooh, that's nice." And then someone tried to replicate that sound and started whistling, and then this is how music started, right? And that's how we invented music. So that's exactly how things will happen with us and you guys together. We will have a new type of experience, and then the brain will start thinking, oh, I can do that as well, and I can do that as well. And this is why we will be here to make those things happening. So those are absolutely options. And again, because of the amazing abilities that the actuator, or what people call in the daily language the vibrator that we are using, because of the high quality of it, the amount of information that we will be able to create, and it will be easily distinguishable for the user, will be very large. So it's very far from the vibrator that you are used to on your phone that just goes like bzz, bzz, or stuff like that. It's yeah, when you feel someone's heartbeat, you really feel their heartbeat. Or to one of the funny incidents that we had in the office while we were testing the actuators, and we got to this one, and I'm very serious about saying that we tested hundreds of them, and we got to this one, and we got really excited, and then we transferred the piece of music. We transferred the song "Money" by Pink Floyd into vibrations, And then I held the thing in my between my fingers, and it started vibrating like the song. And then I put it on the table. And then at that stage, the moment it touched the table, the whole table became like a speaker. So and you could literally hear the whole song as you were listening to it. So the haptic abilities of the device are really high. So we can now that I'm talking to you, suddenly I'm like, wait, but maybe we can actually translate real words for deaf people, that they will feel them in touch, like real words. So you see.
So is the device 100% haptic? It does not speak at all, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I'm fascinated with what you're doing here. And so if I seem like a skeptic, it's not because I don't want to see you be successful. It's to try and get my mind around how practically this thing could really be of use.
Oops, we lost Michael, or it's just me?
I think we might have lost Michael. So he might come back to us. I do appreciate what Michael's saying, because I think those of us, and this is probably worldwide, but orientation mobility specialists, I think, have wanted to see some technology emerge that truly meets all of our expectations for students and adults who are in need. But we've become skeptics because some of the technologies, you mentioned smart canes as an example. There are emerging products at times that don't quite get off the ground. They're experimental, and others have done quite well, and they do what they were expected to do, and we know their limitations. But let's see, is Michael? He's still frozen. Are you back, Michael?
Sorry about that. Go ahead though, Chris. I can come back in later, or maybe that was.
Michael, I think you're on again.
Oh, well, okay. You're quite correct about the fact that tactile or haptic memory is excellent, and it's probably more reliable than auditory memory or visual memory. However, one thing that those of us who work with blind people, I often have this conversation with some of the teachers of visually impaired children that I work with, is the visual sense and the way it moves into the brain can operate on many different pathways at once. You can learn 5 or 6 different things visually simultaneously. The auditory sense does not have as good of capabilities in those areas, but it's probably the second most adaptable sense in terms of being able to learn on multiple channels. If you're working with someone who is blind, and perhaps this is even more the case with congenitally blind, you're working with someone who may have learning capabilities far superior to many of us who are sighted. They are in no way encumbered in terms of their professional acquisition of skills or whatever, but the learning pattern becomes much more linear, and oftentimes their learning style becomes much more organized, because it's very difficult to take things in through as many channels at once if you are working strictly tactually, or tactually with perhaps some auditory input. And I think where I'm going with this, and perhaps it's just that I haven't gotten to experience your incredible vibrator you found in Germany, but I can't quite imagine, if the device is set to give you this much useful information, how you determine what the different channels of information are that are coming in. And if you have to switch from channel to channel all the time, that seems like it would be rather cumbersome compared to everything else you're doing in life. Am I making any sense with the question here?
I'm not sure I got actually the last part with switching between channels. That's the part that I think I'm not sure that I got you, but I think one thing that is really important to remember is that the amount of haptic stimulations that a person will have in the basics of the device to learn is very, very small. So, you know, you will not be connected to thousands of people. So you have to, it's a device that is meant to connect you to your close family. So few people around you, and then directions. Now, so you are speaking about a range of, I don't know, between 5 to 8 to 9 different stimulations that you will learn, and then onwards we can there will be a what's called in the professional language a gamification process where people will be able to learn further other stuff, but to use the device with its intended use of directions, people, and locations, you are speaking about a very, very small number of different haptic stimulations. So it's not, I don't know, Braille or sign language, but it's nothing close to that, because it's not a mean of communication that you're reading the news or you are translating a TV show. It's a purely few stimulations. So in that sense, I think you can be assured that it's a very simple process.
Okay, let me, I hope that this will help other people learn as well, because what you're saying sounds wonderful, but it's still quite abstract. And what I'm going to do is give you a scenario, and I want you to tell me if this person is wearing a Sentaro, how it's going to help them and how they're going to switch from one bit of information to the other. We've got a totally blind itinerant school teacher. She's a TVI that goes from school to school working with blind students. She has a referral of a new student at a new school that she's never been to before. And she gets a ride to the school. All right, she walks into the school. Now, the first thing she's going to need to know is some environmental information about the school. Maybe looking for a person to tell her where the main office is or where the classroom is she's looking for. She goes in, she meets with the student. She's very capable of that. She needs no special input because she knows her job as a teacher. But then she has to leave the school and find the bus stop that's nearby because she doesn't have a ride going back where she needs to go. So she needs GPS and identification of landmarks to help her find the bus stop. Once she gets on the bus and gets sat down, she thinks, I wonder how my daughter is doing at daycare. I want to feel her heartbeat. Now, all of those are valuable things. But when I talk about switching from channel to channel, how does she go from help me understand this environment I'm in to help me find the bus stop in the built environment using possibly GPS and some other features of landmark identification, and then to tune in on what's going on with her family? That's what I'm referring to when I talk about 3 different channels.
Yeah, so those channels you are setting them on the device. You can do that, for example, at the beginning of the day, and to let them be on. So, for example, if you want to be connected to your daughter, you don't need to. You can sense where your daughter is and where the next destination is at the same time. You don't need to switch between channels. So the device, because again, it has different haptic stimulations for the 2 targets that you're sensing. So your daughter, I assume that she's already preset in the device, and you could just use voice activation, probably tell to switch that on. And then the other target or the new destination that you want to sense, you will enter it as you enter it into any other application that you have. So it's in any way not different in terms of complexity from any other technology that we are used to use these days anyway.
Okay.
By the way, guys, I really appreciate the questions, and I think this is exactly why we are here, so we can learn and we can have a conversation. And again, the whole idea behind us being here is to do together and to explore together and to learn. We have a lot of experience, and again, our main neuroscientist is a PhD coming from Oxford, and his experience and his whole life he's worked around sensory different incapabilities or problems with different populations, and we had an amazing experience with the NordSense with our first device, and we are very confident in the Sentero and the ability and the input that it will give to people, again on a practical level, but also on a mental well-being level of connectivity, which, by the way, these days is no different for the people who can see or people that cannot see, because unfortunately in the situation that we are now, we are all isolated. And I think that if there is one thing that we probably most of us miss these days, is a hug or a touch from people that we missed and we haven't seen for such a long time.
Livio, I have a couple of comments to make, but I want to give anyone in the audience an opportunity that still has a burning question. So if anyone wants to throw something on the chat, or you have a last question you'd like to ask, please do so.
Can I please ask something? If you guys could please be kind and drop me, those of you that again, we don't have huge capacity to do the project with all the organizations in the world, although I would really love to. But those that are willing and happy to do a short pilot with us, please write your email in the chat, so I have the email and I could be in touch with you and make sure that we are in communication and we are in touch. Again, there is no sales here, there is nothing. We will provide stuff for free, we will learn together, we will improve together, and the aim here is to do as good as possible. I think one of the worst mistakes that we could have done as a company is to come and say, hey, so we created this technology, it's amazing, it works fantastically, and it's all ready to go. But we tried not to do that, and the aim here is to say we have an amazing team with a really great vision, with an experience from one product, and we want together with you to try to make the best out of it and to see how we can together start using technology in a way that maybe we didn't use before, that can have a tremendous impact on the way that we live our lives. So I'm very thankful for any input and question, and that's the type of conversations that we will continue having once having the devices as well. And I'm absolutely confident that we will get to a very good result.
Well, I want to thank you, and I guess my closing thoughts is that emerging technologies need a great deal of scrutiny in order to determine, you know, or to reach their highest value for the end user. And I I just really appreciate your openness to taking feedback, because you've had some challenging questions, as well as some questions, questioning, whether the end user would be able to make good use of the technology as it sits currently. But what occurs to me again is that at this stage, there's just so much opportunity for fine tuning it, and probably the technology holds more capability than what some end users will want to use on a daily basis. An interesting simple technology that many O&M instructors are familiar with is a small handheld device that's an ultrasonic mobility product called a mini guide. It's made available through our American Printing House for the Blind. And I don't know of anyone who uses that on a daily basis to necessarily enhance their travel skills, or to move in an environment, simple or complex. But I've found great use for that device as a teaching tool, to help students understand where they are in space, and as they approach doorways and walls and pieces of furniture, that there is a three-dimensional environment around them. And so your device has so much capability, but I think what's exciting to me is how you kept going back to how customizable it is. And I think you and your colleagues at Cyborg Desk are doing the right thing right now and getting feedback. So I've enjoyed this, and I hope the rest of the folks who sat in today have enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, thank you for the kind words, and I think you are spot on, because I think we as humanity, we are here to explore, right? And we are here to experience new things. And I think that the challenging questions and the challenges that we ask ourselves as well, that is the right path to go forward. And my job here as the leader of the company is to learn as much as possible, and together with you to explore, and we are very passionate about trying to use technology in a new way, and to try to impact our society, and for people to benefit. And I'm going back to the place of where I started from, of equipping people with hidden recording equipment that was connected to their body in a lot of cases, and that changed countries. I can't get into details of exactly where we were working and what we were doing, but all of you saw on the news materials that we produced, and we managed to expose it to the world, and you never knew that is us. But that little moment when you see a person that is daring enough and brave enough to take a piece of technology and to put it on his or her body, and to document something, and suddenly that thing has an impact on reality, that was a eureka moment for me when I was like, and I grew up in the 90s. I was actually 40 like 3 days ago, so I'm relatively young, and I grew up in the 90s together with technology, and I was looking, and it was all very exciting, and I was looking at the internet and all that, and I was like, yeah, it's really cool that I can know the NBA score live as they happen, but what is the actual real impact that technology can have on humanity? Because yes, knowing if the Bulls are winning now, it's a cool thing to know, but is there more? So I was privileged enough to experience that from one hand, from my personal experience with my previous work, and now what we do at Cyborg Nest. And it's all a journey, and never happens as a nothing happens as a magic. This is why I didn't come here to sell anything to anybody, but to try to propose a partnership, a friendship, that we can learn together and do together. Yeah, so thank you very much to all of you for being here, and it's been a big pleasure, and I promise to drop an email to all the kind people that share their details in the chat, and yeah. And by the way, also I'm gonna write my email here as well, so you all have it. And please feel free to drop me any question at any time. One of the things that none of us had a new sense suddenly, so there is no such thing as I know how that is because I have had 12 new senses, so it's all clear. Any question is okay, and do not feel, oh, maybe I should not ask that because it's a stupid question, or maybe it's obvious. It's not obvious, and it's okay to ask, and that's why we are here. And I'm always happy to answer as fast as possible. So thank you for the time. I really appreciate it. And thank you to Joy and to you and to everybody who organizes this conference and gave us the opportunity to share what we do.
Well, it was my pleasure to be the host. I'm not terribly tech savvy, but with this small group, it worked quite nicely. So, and we have about just a few minutes before the next portion of our COSB celebration begins. And so I think to allow people a few minutes in between signing on to our premier event this evening, which is our awards ceremony and social hour, I'll thank you, Olivia. And I did encourage everyone, and again, if you type, did you provide? Yes, you did. You provided your email directly, Livio, and I appreciate that because
yeah, sorry, in the beginning I did it privately to Chris, but he was kindly enough to understand my mistake. Wonderful. And he shared it with everybody.
Great.
So although yeah, you see, everybody does mistakes using technology. So
well, that's fantastic. If anyone misses that, they can certainly go through me and I can help connect. So we will sign off. Thank you very much. Good luck. We're excited about seeing this develop, and I am very certain it will fit the needs of, some of the folks that we work with. And so we appreciate your good intentions and good work.
Thank you, guys. Have a lovely rest of the conference, and I hope that with the situation one day we can also meet in person, and that will be lovely.
Thank you, Livio, and thank you for staying awake to share.
Yes. Have a good night.
That's not a problem.
Take care. Thank you all.
Cheers. Bye-bye.